In our village, there is a custom that the younger brother inherits the elder brother's wife. As soon as my brother died, my mother couldn't wait to push my sister-in-law into my room. My mother said, "Your sister-in-law is clean. You should treat her well." I rubbed my hands together and looked at my bewildered sister-in-law. Just as my sister-in-law was taking off her clothes tremblingly, I received a call from my third uncle. Uncle San said breathlessly, "Your sister-in-law hanged herself on a big tree at the entrance of the village. She is dead. Why didn't anyone come to collect her body?" In an instant, my face turned pale. At this time, my sister-in-law was left with only a white suspender. Her skin was as white as cream and flawless. But now, no matter how beautiful she is, I don't have the heart to appreciate her. Just when she wanted to continue, I hurriedly stopped her. I took a deep breath and tried to look normal. Uncle Sen has something to talk to me about. I'll go first. Just as I put my hand on the door handle, wanting to rush out. "Don't go," my sister-in-law said softly. "Don't go. He wants to hurt you." I looked at my sister-in-law in shock. My sister-in-law took a deep breath and said, "Believe me, he is no longer alive. Think about it, in the past half-month, have you seen him during the day?" My sister-in-law's words made me a little hesitant, because I haven't seen my third uncle during the day recently. Uncle Sen loves being in the crowds, the most on weekdays. He likes to mingle with the crowd whenever he has time. It's unreasonable to stay indoors during the day. Seeing that my expression was somewhat relaxed, my sister-in-law immediately said, "It takes 7 days for a dead body to become a zombie. After it becomes a zombie, it will suck blood. It takes 7 days for a zombie to be reborn. Noah, listen to me. Don't go, you will die." My sister-in-law's words made my whole body go limp, and I slid down the door frame. I was raised by my third uncle, so logically I should trust him. But what my sister-in-law said was not without reason. I had not seen my third uncle in the daytime for a long time. My sister-in-law walked slowly to me, stretched out her hand, gently grasped my hand and said, "Noah, don't be afraid. I won't let anything happen to you." I lowered my eyes and stared at my sister-in-law's hand. Something was wrong. How does my sister-in-law know so much? I took the initiative and grabbed my sister-in-law, staring at her with my sharp eyes. "Tell me, who are you?" "No one in the village knows that Uncle San is dead." "How did you know?" My sister-in-law was like a frightened little white rabbit, with a hint of evasion in her eyes. "Noah, don't ask me. I really can't tell you, but you believe me. I won't lie to you." I sneered and pushed my sister-in-law's hand away. "You didn't say anything, and you still want me to believe you. Look at me. Am I easy to fool?" As I said that, I wanted to push the door open and walk out. My sister-in-law was startled and hugged me tightly from behind. The sweet and soft touch made my back stiffen. My sister-in-law choked up and said, "Noah, I really can't tell you, but you really can't go out. If you leave this room tonight, you will definitely die. But if you stay in this room, all the ghosts will retreat and no one can hurt you. This room was built by your grandfather to protect you when he was alive. Even if you don't believe me, you have to believe your grandfather. Do you know my grandfather?" My sister-in-law opened her mouth and said nothing more. I knew she wouldn't say anything if I asked her any further. But I don't know if it was because my sister-in-law brought up my grandfather or because her expression was too sincere, but at this moment, I completely believed her. I hugged her and sighed. "Forget it. I believe you." When my sister-in-law heard me say that I believed her, she breathed a sigh of relief. She slipped into my arms, trembling, and her hands began to dishonestly pull at my clothes. I knew very well that now was not the right time, but I was not Lu Xiaohui, and I could not remain calm. Just as I was kissing my sister-in-law in ecstasy, there was a knock at the door. "Noah, open the door, you little brat. I called you, and you didn't answer." It was Uncle San's voice. I looked at my sister-in-law in panic, and the knocking on the door continued. "Open the door quickly, or I'll come in." "Can I come in?" My sister-in-law shook her head and said calmly, "It's okay. Don't be afraid. It's just a paper tiger. The threshold of this house is made of peach wood, and even the cement used to build the house is mixed with yellow talismans. Nothing dirty can get in unless you agree." Hearing what my sister-in-law said, I breathed a sigh of relief. Uncle Sam knocked on the door for a long time, but when he saw that I had no intention of opening it, he left cursing. After my third uncle left, my sister-in-law still wanted to continue. But no matter how hard she tried to seduce me, I just couldn't muster the energy. Finally, I could only hug my sister-in-law, sighed and said, "Go to sleep." The next day, when I woke up, my sister-in-law was nowhere to be seen. Thinking of what happened last night, I jumped out of bed, got dressed quickly, and went out, in broad daylight, to see what's going on with my uncle. On the way, I met my childhood playmate Henry. Henry was very happy after not seeing me for many years. He waved to me and asked me where I was going. I hesitated for a moment and didn't dare tell him the truth. I just told him that my mother asked me to call my sister-in-law home for dinner. Unexpectedly, as soon as I finished speaking, Henry looked at me with horror. "Aren't you the only son in your family? How can you have a sister-in-law when you don't even have a brother?" "Brother, I'm timid. Don't scare me." "What bullshit are you talking about, my brother?" I stopped halfway through my scolding. "My brother. Yes, what happened to my brother? Why don't I have any memory of him in my mind?" Henry patted my shoulder with a pale face and said, "You must be possessed by evil spirits. Go see Uncle Sam." In an instant, I felt a chill down my spine and my whole body was covered in cold sweats. It was so evil. Yes, where did my brother come from? Where did my sister-in-law come from? Henry left. I stumbled toward my third uncle's house. My third uncle's house was nearby, and just as I was about to push the door open, a pair of hands grabbed me again. It was my sister-in-law. I was shocked. My sister-in-law quickly covered my mouth and dragged me towards the sorghum field. I wanted to break free from my sister-in-law's grip, but she was too strong, and it was useless no matter how many times I tried. Only when we reached the depths of the sorghum field did my sister-in-law let me go and sighed softly. I blushed and said, "Who are you, and why did you lie to me?" My sister-in-law looked at me for a long while before she said, "Actually, I'm not a human. My name is Iris. Snakes arise and fate ends. Your grandfather has done a favor to my family. I will not harm you, Noah." Iris put her boneless hand on my forehead. "Noah, wake up and think about it carefully. Are there really still people alive in this village?" I looked at Iris with my hair all over my body. "What do you mean?" Iris shook her head. "I can't tell you. You can only think about it yourself. But I won't hurt you." I almost collapsed and looked at Iris. "You keep telling me to trust you, but you don't tell me anything. Why should I trust you? I don't believe a word of your nonsense. I'm going to ask Uncle Sam for clarification now." Just as I turned around to leave, Iris suddenly grabbed my neck. She whispered in my ear, "Noah, you see, if I wanted to kill you, it would be easy. But I really wanted to save you." The feeling of being restrained by death made me dizzy, and my brain was almost at its limit. In a flash, I remembered that everyone in our village seemed to be really dead. I collected the bodies for them. Just when I thought I was going to die, Iris suddenly let me go. I knelt on the ground, breathing heavily. After a long while, I finally came to my senses. It seems that everyone in our village is really dead. "I believe you. Tell me what I should do." Iris grinned when she heard that I believed her. Iris said that the bridge is where Yin Chi gathers and Yin and Yang meet. Most of the souls in our village are attached to the bridge at the entrance of the village. At night, I needed to go to the bridge with white wax in my hands, walk from the beginning to the end of the bridge, and see off the people from our village. Only in this way can I return to a normal and peaceful life. Iris spoke. She brought me a bowl of golden braised pork. Iris grinned and said, "Eat quickly. Sending souls at night is a physically demanding job. Only when you are full will you have the strength to fight those dirty things." I looked at the meat in front of me, hesitated for a moment, and asked Iris, "Everyone in the village is dead. Where did you get the meat?" Iris paused with her chopsticks in her hand, then stared at me and said, "This meat was left by your grandfather." "Noah, you forgot that your grandfather was a pork seller. It's not surprising to have meat at home." After hearing what Iris said, I seemed to vaguely remember that my grandfather was a pork seller. At night, Iris handed me the candle and repeatedly reminded me, "Noah, you must remember. Don't respond to anyone who talks to you on the bridge. No matter what they tell you, don't believe it. They are all lying to you. Also, don't look back. Otherwise, you will be dragged into the yin and yang world by them and will never be reborn. Noah, you must remember this." I took the candle from Iris and nodded to her solemnly. "I've made a note of it, don't worry." Then I walked slowly to the bridge with the candle. The moon tonight is very big and bright, but the bridge is pitch black. It was as if the bridge was a world of its own, cut off from everything around it. Not even the moonlight could penetrate. I looked at the dark bridge, feeling a little scared. My feet felt numb, and I stood there stiffly, unwilling to move. Seeing that I was hesitating, Iris became anxious and shouted at me, "Noah, what are you still hesitating about? You've already been a coward once. Do you want to be a coward a second time? Do you really want to die?" Iris said before, but the word death brought back all my rationality. I was startled and stepped onto the bridge resolutely. The moment I stepped onto the bridge, the scene around me changed like a kaleidoscope. I returned to my home and saw that my grandfather had brought me a daughter-in-law. I wanted to lift my wife's veil, but my grandfather slapped me on the hand. Grandpa smiled and said, "Now is not the right time. Wait until your wife sheds her skin, and then she will really be your wife." The scene changed, and I saw Henry leading a group of people rushing into my room. They pulled off my wife's veil and her pants. She looked at me with tears in her eyes, and that face was clearly Iris. Just when I was trying desperately to step forward to stop it, there was a turn, and I was back on the bridge. I don't know when Uncle Sen stood in front of me. He leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Noah, did you see that? Iris hates not only them, but you as well. They defiled Iris. They deserve to die, but you stood by and watched, being an accomplice. How can you be any better than them? Noah, blow out the white candles and get off the bridge, or you'll die." "Noah, in fact, we are all dead. You are the only one alive in the whole village. You must believe in Uncle San. Uncle San will not harm you. You must live, and you must live well." Every word my third uncle said was sincere, and I couldn't help myself in the end, so I turned my head and looked at him. He grinned at me sadly, then stretched out his hand and pushed me under the bridge. Then my eyes went dark, and I knew nothing. When I woke up slowly, I opened my eyes and saw a young man staring at me with interest. Seeing that I was awake, he grinned and said, "Who the hell are you? A living dead? Uncle Iris." I looked at him warily. "Who are you? Why am I here? What do you mean?" The young man stroked his chin and said, "You can call me William. I am a yin-yang master. You fainted at the intersection of yin and yang, and I saved you. Strictly speaking, I am your savior. Mr. Yin-yang? Lifesaver." I looked at William. "Then why did you save me?" William looked at my vigilant expression and smiled. "I saved you out of kindness. Most importantly, I want to know how the living dead survived until now." William angrily, "What zombie? What nonsense are you talking about?" William was not annoyed by my attitude and said calmly, "If a person doesn't even have a shadow, what else can he be but a living dead?" The midday sun was so bright and dazzling that I twisted my neck stiffly. I glanced around and saw that I really had no shadow at all. I collapsed on the bed with a pale face, shaking all over. Am I really not a human? William patted my shoulder and said, "There's nothing to be sad about. I think your face shows the sign of stillbirth, which means you should not have been born into this world. But you lived peacefully for 18 years. Someone must have deceived heaven and earth for you, in order to rob heaven and earth of their good fortune, and thus robbed you of these 20 years. He loves you very much. Get up and take me to your house. I want to see how he did it." William blankly, without saying anything. I had no desire to take him home. William looked at me with understanding. "How about this? You take me to your house, and I'll save your life if you can solve my doubts. You're in a mess right now. I've been traveling around the country for so many years and have seen a lot of things, but I've never seen anything as messy as you. You are a living dead, but you are haunted by hundreds of ghosts, and there's also some cause and effect with Iris's family." William was still chattering on, but I wasn't paying attention. All I could think about was the words, "I'll save your life," Iris, and Uncle Sam from the bottom of my heart. But William is not involved in this matter. Therefore, his words are the most credible. I looked at William and asked, "Are you serious about saving my life?" As soon as I said the words, William knew that I was loose and grinned at me. "I will do my best." I closed my eyes, then stood up and said to William, "Let's go. I'll take you back to my house." After arriving at my house, William looked around and said in amazement, "A lot of thought has been put into this house. Not to mention that the land is 100% a place for raising corpses. Even every brick and tile is filled with corpse energy, picked out of the grave. No wonder you've lived so long and taken care of so well. But these are all auxiliary. It's not these things that really protect you." William, with a frown, "After all, I also want to know how I have survived until now." William didn't respond to me, but changed the subject and said, "I'm hungry. Is there anything to eat?" I didn't say anything, turned around and went to the kitchen and brought out the meat that I had left over from yesterday. "There's nothing to eat at home. All we have left is this braised pork. You can make do with it." William looked at the braised pork with interest and said, "I see. It is the most intelligent creature in the world. No wonder it can survive until now." William in confusion. "What do you mean?" William pointed at the meat in the bowl and asked me, "What kind of meat is this?" "Pork. I vaguely remember that my grandfather used to be a pig butcher." "Pork." William laughed so hard that tears came out of his eyes. "This is not pork. How can it be pork? This is lamb." "Mutton? Are you saying that I grew up by eating mutton? Does mutton have such magical effects?" William shook his head. "It's unspeakable. How can ordinary mutton have such an effect? It only happens to sheep with 2 legs. It cannot be explained. It cannot be explained. 2-legged sheep? What is a 2-legged sheep?" I wanted to ask more carefully, but William ignored me and went to my room to sleep. William's bed all afternoon. When it got dark, William slowly woke up. William saw me. He yawned and said, "I said I will try my best to save your life, and I will not break my promise. But first you have to figure out who wants to harm you. Is it Elise or the ghosts in you? The things on your body are so messed up that I can't figure out a clue for a while. You can only think of it yourself." William sadly, "I don't know who wants to harm me. I can't even remember what happened in the past. I don't even know who I am or what kind of person I am." After I finished speaking, William touched my head and muttered, "It turns out that I have lost my soul. You were originally a living dead, and now you have lost a living soul. No wonder you are confused. It's okay. The night is long, and it's the best time to summon souls. I will summon your soul back, and you should know what's going on." As he spoke, William opened my palm and drew a symbol on it. William said, "This is called a soul-calling talisman, and I just need to hang it in every corner of our village, big and small. My lost soul will naturally come back. But William's face became unusually serious. But you have to believe me. Tonight, no matter who talks to you, don't answer. And don't look back, or even the gods can't save you. Remember, first, don't respond, and second, don't look back. As long as you listen to me and don't violate these two taboos, no one can do anything to you. I nodded heavily to William. Don't worry. I believe you, and I will listen to you. As soon as it was midnight, William urged me to go out. William said that now is the best time to search for souls, as the yin energy is at its peak, and the old is replaced by the new. When I was about to step out of the house, William called me again. William sighed and said, I still want to remind you again. Once you go there will definitely be something that will try to confuse right and wrong and disturb your mind. I still say the same thing. If you want to survive, you must trust me and never waver. I turned my back to William and nodded, saying in a muffled voice, Don't worry, I believe you. I want to live for myself and for my grandfather who tried so hard to keep me alive. After I went out, I looked around and saw that the village was pitch black, and I felt a little scared. But thinking of William's words, I still plucked up my courage and walked towards the village entrance with the white lantern. Not long after I walked, I saw my uncle. Even from a distance, I could smell the stench of corruption on Uncle San. Uncle San had a pale face and walked towards me stiffly. I was so scared that my heart started beating faster, and I could only force myself to comfort myself that everything was okay. William said that as long as I kept quiet, nothing would happen. I have to believe William. Everything will be fine. Sure enough, Uncle Sen stopped 2 steps away from me. I breathed a sigh of relief. Noah, said Uncle San, scolding me angrily. Why are you still here? Why haven't you left yet? Didn't I tell you that there are no living people in this village? Didn't I tell you that the Chong family's girl wanted to harm you? Why are you still here? Why are you still here? Go! Go quickly! Get out of the village! I took a deep breath, ignored my uncle, and continued walking forward. When my third uncle saw that I ignored him, he became anxious and wanted to come forward and pull my sleeve. But when he was just 1 step away from me, he was violently bounced away by a burst of golden light. Uncle San sat on the ground and looked at me unwillingly, but he couldn't do anything about me. In the end, he could only helplessly watch me walk away. Along the way, I met many people I knew and didn't know. They all tried to talk to me, but I just turned my head away and ignored everyone, until I saw Iris. Iris sighed slightly and looked at me resentfully. You don't believe me? Why don't you ever believe me? My family owes your grandfather a favor, and I am used to repay the debt. So no matter how I am treated, I don't blame you. But why don't you believe me? That Inyang master is not a good person. He is after your body. Noah, I beg you, please trust me once. Wipe off the spell on your palm and go. Iris, who was speaking sincerely and was a little hesitant. Just as I was about to speak, I felt a burning pain in the palm of my hand, and I suddenly remembered what William said to me when he left the house. At that moment, I no longer hesitated and strode towards the village entrance. The moment I reached the village entrance, my eyes went dark and I fainted to the ground. I had a very long dream. In the dream, I saw my life in a rush. My mother died before I was born. My grandfather ignored everyone's objections and cut open my mother's belly with scissors. He took me out of the dying body and named me Noah. At night, my grandmother held me in her arms and said to my grandfather with a sad face, "Old man, this baby has too much negative energy. I can't keep him in this world, otherwise—" Before Grandma could say anything, Grandpa interrupted her sternly. "Don't talk nonsense. This is the last root of my Noah family. I will keep him even if it costs my life." Seeing Grandpa's firm attitude, Grandma stopped saying anything and just hugged me and sighed. The next day, Grandpa started to renovate my yard. My grandfather would dig up the graves at night when no one was around and use the bricks from the graves to replace the original bricks in my house, one by one. I then measured and drew in my bedroom until I designed it into the shape of a coffin. After the renovation of the house was completed, the grandfather breathed a sigh of relief and murmured to himself, "This is a living grave. I hope I can finally keep my grandson here." But I didn't feel any better and became weaker day by day. Grandpa sat on the Kong and smoked all day. At night, Grandpa took a deep breath and seemed to have made an important decision. He gritted his teeth and said, "As long as I can keep my grandson, I will lose my good deeds. I just want my grandson to live." After saying this, my grandfather picked up his hoe and went out without caring how ugly my grandmother's expression was. The next day, Grandma hung a sign on the door. My family officially started selling smoked pork. The smoked pork my grandma makes is so delicious, and the price is so ridiculously low, it's almost free. So within a few days, my smoked pork was served on the table of the whole village. It was also at this time that my health began to improve. I became stronger day by day. Finally, there was a smile on Grandpa's face. When I was 18, my grandfather brought me a daughter-in-law. He treated her with great respect. Every day, my grandfather would be the first to deliver the freshly slaughtered pork dripping with blood to his wife. This is the real deal. I watched my grandfather slaughter the pork with my own eyes. Each time he delivered 10 pounds, my grandfather didn't even blink an eye, and he did this for 48 days in a row. On the 49th day, my grandfather sat in the yard, counting on his fingers, and said with a smile, "It's the last day. It's the last 7 days." Grandpa said that tonight I can lift the red veil of my wife and consummate the marriage with her. "Noah, after tonight, you will no longer be a corpse-born child. You are the legitimate son-in-law of Iris. I don't think anyone dares to look down on you." Grandpa's eyes turned red as he spoke. I wonder who dares to look down on my grandson. But in the end, my grandfather didn't get to see me and my wife consummate our marriage. At night, the village chief's son broke into my house drunk with a group of people. They kicked my grandfather down and went into my wife's room. My grandfather grimaced and told me to go and call for help. I kowtowed to every household in the village, but no one paid any attention to me. Later, when the sky turned white, the village chief's son walked away leisurely, holding up his pants. My wife also disappeared. Grandpa suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, muttering, "It's all in vain. It's all in vain. 18 years of painstaking planning have all gone to waste." Grandpa said with bloodshot eyes, "Since you don't want my Noah family to have an heir, then no one will survive." I woke up suddenly when I dreamed about this. I touched my face with my hand, and it was covered with tears. William, standing nearby, exclaimed in amazement, "So the living dead can also shed tears." I glanced at William and ignored him. William touched his nose, came close to me, and asked, "Do you know who wants to harm you now?" I lowered my head and said, "I understand." Then I told William everything I had dreamed. William nodded, as if he suddenly understood. "That makes sense. In order to create an pain-filled environment for you, your grandfather not only let you eat two-legged sheep for the past 18 years, but also let your entire village eat them. I even went through all means to arrange a marriage for you with the Iris family. That's a good intention. I just didn't expect to fail at the last step. I was defeated by human desires." I lowered my head and said nothing. After a long time, he raised his head and asked William, "What should I do?" William shrugged and stared at me. "It's not what you should do, but what I should do. Since it was the 100 ghosts that harmed you, then I will destroy the 100 ghosts." Looking at William's eyes, I shuddered with fear. He seemed too good to me. William brought a big black dog from somewhere. He took a large bowl full of blood from the black dog and handed it to me, asking me to sprinkle it at the end of the bridge, in the middle of the bridge, and at the end of the bridge. William narrowed his eyes and said, "The black dog can ward off evil spirits, as long as this bowl of dog blood is poured on it. The following matters will be much easier." Without any hesitation, I walked towards the bridge, holding the black dog blood. When we reached the center, Uncle San suddenly appeared. The sunlight burned on Uncle San's body, causing white smoke to come out of his entire body. Uncle San said to me with a painful expression, "Don't splash it. Your grandfather killed everyone in the village. Do you still want everyone in the village to never be reborn? How much evil do you want to commit?" I snorted coldly and ignored my uncle. The black dog's blood was splashed directly onto the middle of the bridge. All along, I just wanted to live. Since you are blocking my way to live, then you should just die. After dealing with the hundreds of ghosts on the bridge, William looked at me with increasingly strange eyes. He said, "Sure enough, the whole family is full of ruthless people. For his own life, he would drag the whole village down with him. Your grandfather is like this, and so are you." I ignored William's sarcasm and just asked him what Iris should do. William was shocked. "Why, you won't even let her go." I turned my head away and said in a low voice, who would want to keep a hidden danger around, "After all, Iris is someone who can easily strangle me to death. I really don't feel comfortable keeping her." William lowered his head and thought for a moment before saying, "Iris is from the Chong family, so we should hit the snake at its weakest part. If you want to kill her, you can only seduce her with your body, and when she is not prepared, pour the realgar wine soaked in talisman paper on her. Then insert the magic weapon into her vital point, and then she will naturally disappear into thin air." William, with a firm expression, and slowly said, "Okay." I walked across most of the village and finally found Alice. When Alice saw me, she was very excited. She walked towards me quickly, took my hand, and wanted to leave. "Noah, come with me quickly. Believe me, that young master is not a good person. He is full of deathly aura, and it's obvious that he is an evil cultivator. He wants to use your body of the living dead to nourish his soul." Iris kept chattering on, but I didn't pay any attention. I just took advantage of her crazy look to pour the realgar wine William gave me on her, and then stabbed her in the vital area with a knife. Iris looked at me with a painful expression. "You don't believe me. Why have you never believed me? Noah, I have never lied to you." These were the last words Iris uttered before she disappeared. I looked at the direction where Iris disappeared with a sense of loss, until William clapped his hands and walked up to me. "That's great. The eldest daughter of the Iris family is dead. But she died in your hands. It has nothing to do with me, Noah. Iris tried her best to save you 3 times and stopped you 3 times, but she failed to stop you from heading towards your destined end. She's devoted to you. You should trust her." William in horror.